Well, thanks so much for coming out this evening and taking the time. I think it's a Wednesday, all the days sort of just blend this time of year. Thank you so much for coming out here. I want to thank the DOT for taking the time to come down and give us an update on a project so important to this town. Bruce, I don't know if you had things you want to mention.
First, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you very much for the things you've done for us to move this along. Thank the DOT senior staff, the architectural firm, Michael Baker, general manager of the project, all the other folks that are here that are associated with this project. Thank you very much. I think this will be very informative for everybody, and we're very excited to finally get the expansion going. So we with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Eric Feldman. I'm from the Connecticut Department of Transportation. This is a public information meeting, not a hearing, so it's a little more casual. Michael Baker will be giving a short presentation on the improvements at the Clinton train station. Following that, we will be answering questions and answers. And so I'm going to introduce people because everyone will be probably helping in on answering any of your questions. So I'm Eric Feldman, the project engineer from Facilities Design. We have Chris Bonsenior, the principal engineer from Facilities Design. Jim Fallon back there is the manager of transit and facilities. Angela Maynard is the assistant project engineer from facilities. Yuri Kuljas is from the Bureau of Public Trans, Office of Rail. He'll answer all the tough questions. All right. And then we have Michael Baker, Stephen, and David Tujrin. David will be giving the presentation from Michael Baker. So if you could just watch the presentation, then we'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I'm David Tugrin. I'm the project manager and the senior architect for Michael Baker International, an engineering and architectural firm that's been consulting on behalf of the Department of Transportation for the last 18 years here in Connecticut. A little bit about the project. I mean, many of you have lived through the upgrades of the Shoreline East program. Ultimately, when we began the first round of upgrades in 1996, you had pressure-treated wood platforms and bus shelters at Branford, Guilford, Madison, Clinton, and Westbrook. Old Saybrook was a different story. But since then, we've upgraded all of the stations, at least with what we consider the phase one approach towards the program. So, as you know, with the I-95 work in New Haven, Shoreline East upgrades were essentially a solution to improve commuting into New Haven. And as we started to upgrade the stations, we realized a double-digit increase in ridership every year. So it made sense for the Department of Transportation to continue to upgrade the Shoreline East and improve transit connections throughout the corridor. So the purpose and need, as I said, we are completing, I guess what I would term phase two, although we kind of loosely call it that, of the Shoreline East program. Some of the stations currently have double track platforms, one on the north, one on the south side, 203 feet long each, and they're connected by elevator towers and stairs. Essentially, that was installed at the locations necessary to facilitate the service along the Northeast Corridor and improve the connection and the interaction between the Amtrak trains and the Shoreline East trains. So we prioritized the locations that we needed to do that to first. Clinton at the time was a single-sided track operation, and that has mostly to do with the interlockings on the corridor. So it made sense to do this. We can board trains, track 1 or track 2 from the south platform. We created essentially what you have today, what you can see on the images. Essentially a single-sided platform, 200 feet long. It is level boarding. In other words, you go onto the train, behind the train. The shelter, which was always a temporary solution, ultimately is something that we're going to unbolt and we're going to recycle and use for bicycle parking on the north side. So that foundation, although we're going to make some improvements to it, is essentially going to be reused and used for the tower location. Back up here. As I said, improved multimedia Multimodal connections and walkability. We recognize some improvements are happening in the corridor, on the Route 1 corridor, particularly the CBS parcel, as well as just the proximity to the downtown area, Route 1, and improving those multimodal connections and potentially having a drop-off area on the north side was one of our priorities. And the state of good repair. It's been since 2005 since the station has been open in this phase, and you know the salt air and the trains and lots of other harsh environment conditions cause some things to deteriorate. So we're going to take care of a lot of that and clean it up and modernize it in that sense. So the construction timeline, as I said, you opened the service for Shoreline East in May of 1990. The upgrades that you have today were accomplished in July of 2005. And the current phase, which I'll describe, has a start date of March of next year, March 2018, with a completion date approximately 20 months, December 2019. You all know the site, I suspect, but we are building the platform directly north of the existing platform adjacent to the Unilever East lot. And the area that will be affected by construction is along the area of the shelter and the existing platform, as well as part of the Unilever lot to the north. So we hope to mitigate and reduce the amount of impact on the existing parking towards the west of the station. Our goal is to maintain the service as the project is completed, like we did in Brantford a couple of years ago. That's the site, and you're familiar with the existing conditions. Here we have the south platform, which serves both tracks, and the shelter in the back. And that is the Unilever lot to the north. So part of that parcel is actually owned by Amtrak. We will be improving upon it, separating it from the main section of the Unilever parcel, providing a circulation element for vehicles to come through, circle around, and then head back north. There is a limited amount of parking on that side as well, so we'll have a kiss and ride drop-off area, accessible route to the parking lot, into the platforms and the parking. So some of the elements that we're installing here, as I said, at grade high-level boarding, that is an FRA, Federal Rail Administration requirement that we board platforms at grade, so board trains at grade. The north side currently doesn't have that. This would enable us to board trains on that side in a level boarding scenario. Persons with disabilities, persons that are mobilely challenged can much more easily get on the trains in this new scenario. So the grade separated crossing that you have today, or not grade separated, the crossing that you have today on the south side, just west of the tracks where you would have to cross the tracks to get to the boarding area on the north side is unsafe. You know, the trains are going 110 roughly miles per hour through here. The new version of this station will have the pedestrian overpass, which enables you to cross safely above. The improved passenger waiting area will include shelters, which is something we've been asked for, have been asked of us of all of the stations. It's simply a windscreen that's protected from the elements just a little bit better than what we have today. The elevator lobbies will include an area where you can wait, as well as the pedestrian bridge. We actually find persons enjoy kind of waiting for the trains on that height. They're able to see things as they're approaching the station. A passenger information system will be implemented similar to what we have at other shoreline stations. Enables you to see when the next trains are approaching. Also, very critical warning messages about standing back when there's a train approaching and not stopping, as the Amtrak trains do today. The energy efficient lighting, one of the things we are going to do is replace the lighting on the north side. We've been mostly implementing LED lights at stations, including site lighting, ramp lighting, stair lighting, much more energy efficient products that we use today. And other passenger safety improvements, dual elevators. This will be the first shoreline station that will have dual elevators on each side of the track. So you will have 4 elevators in Clinton. That's resulting from the possibility that an elevator could be out of service, and that would pose a condition where someone that needs to use the elevator would have to go around or ask for help. So that's a huge improvement that I think we'll be seeing. This is sort of the prototype for that amongst the Connecticut stations. Emergency speaker phones, in other words, the blue light phones that you might see on campuses, those are included. There's a security camera system, so there will be CCTV that's going to be added to the stations. And as I said, the covered bicycle storage, so we'll be taking that shelter and moving to the north side for bicycle storage area. Additional parking and drop-off areas, I said as well. So this might be something you can look at a little bit closer on the site plan on the board here, but this is essentially your new station. The colored section shows the new platform, up and over structure, and the pedestrian bridge that links the two of them together. And essentially the north side parking lot. It's a tight lot. We were able to get another 21 spaces out of that lot, but more importantly, I think, is we have a good circulation and drop-off area for passengers that are being dropped off. So just to zoom in of that location, you can see the passenger shelter that exists today on the south side will be moved to the north corner, the north lot. We'll also be providing a stairway coming from Hull straight up to the one station, which will enable anybody walking up from any of the neighborhoods north of here to get right to the platforms. This is essentially the look of your station as we see it. We've tried very hard to maintain the identity of the shoreline service. So essentially this is in essence a prototype that's been established. And if you've been to Westbrook, that was opened recently. Branford has a new infrastructure. So very similar. We work with the towns to establish the colors and material selections. There's been a couple of requests depending on the town. Branford had a green as their shelters and things in the town. They wanted that at the station. So, I mean, we certainly are willing to work with the town of Clinton to establish some of the finishes. We can, as long as we're really talking about colors and materials, we can play around with that for sure. There's a pretty significant re-landscaping area here along Central and Hull. That area will have to be modified for the new design, so we're going to be taking that landscaping out. That's another thing that the department will be working closely with the town to ensure that the plants that we chose are something that works for all of you. We have a Connecticut landscape architect who's done many of my stations. She's great, and she'd be willing to sit down with whoever the town identifies as that contact. These are a little hard to see with these fluorescent lights right in front here. Ironically, though, the only ones, right? But the rendered views are again shown on those boards there, so you can see the up and over structure. The upper left image is essentially looking easterly towards where the existing station is to the right-hand side. So we're reusing that foundation, as I said, building that new structure. I really encourage you to take a look at Westbrook. Probably is the closest and best example of what the station will look like here in Clinton. With that, I'll have Eric come back and field questions. Thank you for your time.
All right. We'll field some questions if you guys have any. And you can also, if you want to write down my information, you can contact me at that phone number or email, and I can get back to you with any questions you may not have thought of today or any information you're looking to see. So if you do have a question,
This is not the building, the elevation or anything, but how's it going to impact scheduling? I mean, how many trains are going to stop in Clinton post versus right now? I mean, we're going to upgrade the amount of trains actually stopping here because of the new station?
You're correct me if I'm wrong, but the shoreline schedule and the service to Clinton would remain unchanged after the station is upgraded.
That is correct. For now, it will remain the same.
It probably enables more flexibility in the scheduling for the shoreline east because we now can take more advantage of the north track, but I think currently the plan is still going.
That is correct.
yes.
Is there any possibility of expanded parking down the road, long range, in terms of contingency?
Are you talking about on the south side, the existing south
Either
side?
side, anywhere.
Okay, so the proposed parking is on what our current right-of-way from Amtrak, and the rest of the parking is Unilever. So we really are confined in where we could propose parking there. And I believe on the south side, there is a CVS development that's being proposed, basically right south of our station. So there's not much more room that can be added there, and it's obviously pretty narrow anyway, where,
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting question because over the years that we've upgraded the shoreline service, the departments always look for additional parking. And as they build parking, there's been use of that parking to its full capacity in a lot of areas. That said, there's a real trend, especially on the Hartford line stations that we're working on in Meriden and Wallingford, for transit-oriented development. So essentially walkability from where you live to where you commute from. So I think really you're going to see a lot more opportunities for the town to grow the residential core in that area so that you could actually walk to the station without parking. Just a thought.
yes.
In terms of funding, how is this being funded, and is it dependent in any way on the precariousness of the Connecticut state budget?
No, this project is funded, and we are actually going to be going out to bid in the winter of this year. So the project is a go, and I believe it's state funded. Jim, 100% state funded, and the money is there. So we are going to construction in the spring of 18. Yes.
Yeah, I have a few questions, engineering wise. I'm assuming you have survey points already? You did a survey of it?
Yes, sir.
And it's done the GPS, and you're not floating around the world, kind of locked in?
Connecticut coordinate system
Yeah.
is used in the state DOTs.
And I'm assuming you've already done a coil soil boring
Yes, sir.
test in the geotech guy?
The geotech was done back when we tried to get this project kicked off in 2014, but the soil hasn't changed, so we've got good soils report and recognize the capacity of these soils are adequate for cement foundations, not foundations for not doing any deep piles here.
No, okay. Your traffic pattern, I'm assuming that's been approved by the people in the state for the traffic?
Yeah, so when we do anything like this, we have our traffic division look at everything, and because we're only adding 21 parking spaces, it doesn't really impact traffic, the existing traffic.
And all of your environmental permits have been issued and approved by the state and federal already?
Yeah, we didn't really have any, that I can remember, any environmental permits on this at all.
You don't have to get
Construction activities permits only.
Excuse me?
Yeah,
Construction activities permits only.
which is through our own state, we don't go through the town for building permits, we have our own intent to construct permits.
You'll be going out for 3 or 4 bids, competitively sealed bids?
We go out, it's not 3 or 4, it's how many, we are low bid, and yeah, it will be competitively bid, however, people, you can get 8, 10, you can get 3, whoever wants to bid.
As long as the contractor's certified for that range of bidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
They're
qualify,
invited to
right?
bid.
Yeah, we have
Qualified,
pre-qualifications
exactly.
for this type of work. We had a question back there.
2 questions. The existing south side parking, that's going to stay at its full size that it is now?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
We're
Okay.
going to do everything we can to maintain the capacity of that parking lot. I mean, there's going to be some growing pains, but we hope to accomplish those on the weekends, like we've done at the other stations, and to work and communicate through the rails department and commuters to ensure that people understand if we have to take a space or 2 out, that everybody's cognizant of what's happening before it happens.
Yeah, we'll have signs, because we are going to be upgrading the parking lot lights to the LED.
Okay. One other thing, with the CVS going on the south side, is the DOT, do you anticipate negotiating with them perhaps for pedestrian bike access across their property? Otherwise, it's a long way around. Is that, I mean, that was one of my concerns originally with the CVS.
I believe you can answer.
The CBS plan that was adopted by the town has a access from CBS to the train station.
Okay,
Both
they've
with
accepted that, I
Who's
guess?
accepted it.
Okay,
It's-
okay.
Yeah, it's not uncommon
It
for
was
us to
part of
do
the
that.
settlement.
Okay, good.
We'll certainly work with that developer to ensure that there is walkability between the sites.
I have a question on the same vein. Have you had a set of drawings from the CVS engineering architect see if everything's aligned and coordinated between you and them? Have you gotten those drawings yet?
We have gotten some, but there's been updates to them, so I believe we just communicated with them tonight, they're going to forward us the latest drawings.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's so kind of strange when you walk in Clinton. One of the most frequent questions I get from people is, can you tell me where the train station is? It has really bad signage in my mind. Is that part of your scheme to put something that's more compelling and obvious? Or?
Absolutely. You know, it was kind of tucked away in a corner,
Yeah.
which we were kind of forced into that now, but now I believe that we're having the CVS development occur. It's going to open up a little bit. It's definitely going to have more visibility, more prominence on the north side. And we do ensure that it is recognized as an icon in the community, as a station icon. So if you have the occasion to look at Wallingford Station, which is going to be opening in a couple of weeks, that has a significant prominence as part of the community. We hope to do something like that here.
Question right there.
Yeah, follow up on signage on 95. If you could make a note, it might make some sense to put an exit at the Hammonasset Connector, which would be more accessible and would help us on traffic patterns in Clinton. So if one could take a look and see, putting signage there to direct traffic going eastbound to access the train from that exit.
Yeah, we'll make a note of that. I could talk to our traffic people that are in charge of those type of signs, you know, the informational signs. We could, you know, ask, you know, them to look into that.
Downtown Clinton, train station.
Okay.
Be very helpful.
Very good. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. We've had this conversation before, I thought it might just be helpful and edifying for the group. If you guys wouldn't mind speaking to the improvements and the additions to the original designs of the elevators, of an additional backup elevator, and the logic behind that in terms of ADA and how that factors into the pricing of the...
Sure. So the Office of Rails at DOT has a maintenance contract for all the shoreline stations. We have an elevator maintenance contract and an emergency service contract, so that if someone were to be stuck in an elevator was down, they would deploy personnel quickly to remedy this situation. That said, because of the harsh environments that we have here, we're seeing some of the shoreline elevators, you know, corroding on the top and the salt air, things like that. We're dealing with upgrades that will improve on that situation here, but ultimately elevators break down. And so because we really don't have an accessible path other than the elevators at Clinton, if Whole Street had adequate slope that we could use as a redundant path, we would do that, but we don't. So you know, the Department of Transportation has made an effort here to ensure that persons that are traveling are going to have those rights to cross and use both sides of the track. So I think it was kind of a difficult pill to swallow for the department because there's a lot of expense around it, but it is something that ultimately solves the problem at all the locations. Clinton will be the first, and as such, I said we're reusing the south elevator tower. That elevator tower in 2005 was arranged for a single elevator. We're going to expand that now, so we're going to do a little bit of demo. We're going to use what we can. We're going to expand that, but actually that enables the passenger waiting area in that lobby to be a little bit larger, so we can get some passenger information displays in there. Maybe someday ticket vending machines, other kind of passenger amenities, which would enliven that space a little bit. So I think all around it's a good solution. We've tried not to ruin the aesthetic that we have at the other locations, just kind of make it wider, a little bigger in a couple of ways. But I think in the end it's going to be a better solution. It's going to give you better access to the transfer.
The parking on the north side, you said it was partially the Amtrak property.
Yep.
And partially Unilever. Are you guys, is DOT leasing that property? Unilever buying it?
No, we have a right to construct our drainage utilities through the Unilever property. Essentially, we're using the Amtrak right away for the station. I believe I don't know that there's any parcel, there's no parcel property conveyance between.
No. All parking is on the Amtrak property.
That's all of it's on Amtrak?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions, if you bear with me. I participated in your informational session a couple years ago regarding the train station, and there were some questions that many of the participants had, some of them from the Planning and Zoning Planning Committee. And they surrounded the expansion, the parking for our train station in comparison to the other surrounding train stations that have been upgraded, and whether or not there is a future projection use for Clinton, and are we meeting those future projection uses?
Defer to Yuri. I mean, I think Yuri would like to get as much parking as he could in the town. But
I think that's the plan, we keep doing studies, they're based on the latest study that we have from ridership. If there was another question about ridership, we are meeting those expectations. And like I say, we keep doing studies, that's a different area in the Office of Rail, but definitely, we are meeting our existing community and our existing needs at the station.
Some of the community is a little frustrated that the timetables have decreased for Clinton and have not met the same timetables for Madison and Guilford, so people are traveling to those train stations and parking in those lots as opposed to utilizing Clinton. So I think most of the Clinton residents who utilize the train would like to see the timetables match the surrounding towns so they don't have to travel those distances, and that might change your projections for usage or the parking areas.
yeah,
So we'll definitely make a note that we'll bring this to our operations unit, and I will point that out to them.
I should probably also say that the Mylars for the Clinton project were ready to go to bid. Ultimately, it boiled down to Amtrak having the capability to provide flag protection and other services to the department in a timely manner to get that project let. So unfortunately, in 2014, the department was unable to do that. Now we're seeing an opening, and Clinton has since been the priority. Unfortunately, it's been until it's been built, but it is, as we all said, it's funded and will go out to construction.
And then the last question I have is for existing conditions. On the southern side of the track, there's a row of parking that is very close to the property that CVS would be developed. It's almost impossible in winter conditions to pull in and pull out of those areas. I don't know whether or not you're looking to purchase any sort of portion of that, a couple feet additional, to make it a safer traveling distance, backing in, pulling in for that area. It also is very dangerous coming around the corner there, John Street Extension. So the sightlines will be improved, except there is going to be a big fence up there as well, making sure that there's communication for sightlines in that area.
Yeah, so right now, we haven't looked at purchasing any property. We would obviously have to see CVS's new plans, because I believe they swapped where the building's going compared to what we have now, but that's something obviously we could bring to the Office of Rails. He's here, so he heard your issues. I told you he was going to answer the hard ones, so.
So yeah, I could just say, I think about coming home at night and coming off on the south side, and when you compare it, we were talking about the fact that I had to commute down to Norwalk to do some work down there. I wouldn't drive to our station. I went to Madison. It's open, it's bright, and it's safer. If I'm coming home at 8 o'clock at night, I don't want to be in the back of CVS near a dumpster. So how are we going to address that? Lighting, et cetera, signage, access?
So one is I'm hoping what's being demoed, CVS will brighten up that area and open it up a little from the open parking lot and everything. We are upgrading the lights to LED, which are brighter. It should open up the sight lines because there's buildings set far back in the existing area that are going to be demoed. And I believe CVS, I would think it would be set close forward for, frontage, store frontage on the main road. So we would have to take a look at those plans, and we could, we could definitely take a look at it and see what there is. If we could try to work with CVS, and, but we are improving also, actually.
Because I think if the footprint is set for CVS, then that's done, but is it set? Footprint set completely or not?
Number one, I would encourage everybody to look at the plans which are in the land use office. There's no dumpster. You're not going to be staring at a dumpster.
Right.
Dumpsters are well hidden, and the sight lines, living here my whole life, the reason you can't find a train station is because there are ugly buildings in front of it. This is going to open it up. You are going to drive by on Route 1, and you're going to be able to see the train station beautiful right there with another beautiful building in front of it. So please, don't go by what I'm saying. Take a look at the plans. Eric is in there. They're available. Are they available online, Eric? Are the plans available online yet?
They should be part of the electronic submission that we have again.
The intent when the developers of CVS came in for the settlement was to make it work with the train station. They bent over backwards to try to anticipate as much as they could what the interaction would be.
I believe that a question.
In some towns, when the parking is limited right at the train station, there's certain parking elsewhere, and there are shuttle buses that go. Has that ever been contemplated? Is there parking parking possibility elsewhere in Clinton that could be used for the town?
Well, I'm not sure if there's any plan, with the town, but as far as I know, we haven't done anything. So, I know there's some conversation, some coordination with the bus system, but I'm not sure. I will have to, double check with operations.
There'll be a bus station at the corner, I think John Street Extension. There'll be a shoreline, what do they call that? The Nine-Town Transit. That'll be able to drop off there. You'd still have to walk a little bit, to get to the train station, but there will be a drop-off there.
As far as the traffic and sight lines and all what's happening here, does the state of Connecticut have to sign off on a traffic issues for CBS?
Sure.
So maybe what we ought to be doing is, when the Department of Transportation looks at this plan, is taking into consideration what we need to do, and then make some demands upon developers about traffic, because the traffic in this area is pretty congested. The other thing about dumpsters, there's dumpsters all over this town that should be removed, that aren't being removed. So I'll tell you what, once something is built, dumpster can come the next week.
Yeah, I have the drawings here that I got the other day from the zoning board, and there is a dumpster here in our plans in this area by the drive-out. So all I suggest there is that they have it lined out, and they have a loading area that these drawings, that you guys coordinate that to make sure the line of sight. Where the concern probably is this drive-out into John Street, and there's a big compactor there, for cardboard, and there's other dumpsters. So it is in the plan.
It is, but show them the fence that hides the dumpster.
And there's a fence, yeah, there's a fence there, it's all there. I'm just saying to the lady, it is there. And it's not gonna come later, it's gonna come now. So we just gotta coordinate it to make sure everything works out.
Yep.
And I'm surprised that you went this far, you don't have the drawings.
We do have drawings, but we were told that there's updated ones. We
Yeah.
grabbed the ones off the website, but we're getting forward to the latest ones.
I don't think there's anything you can't work out.
No.
But I know the railroad will take precedence over the development. I know that goes back.
Well,
Two questions. Currently, there's a small, not very useful, but bike rack on the south side. Will that stay? If so, if not, it would be very useful to those of us who live south of the tracks rather than have to go under and underneath that bridge. As a bicyclist, it's not ideal.
yeah, it's staying on the south side. We're just giving you cover.
Right, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. So it wasn't clear on the drawings. I couldn't see where it was located.
We'll make a
So-
note to ensure that's made.
And the second thing is the abutment that's on Route 81 under the bridge. Is that being worked on? I couldn't tell whether there's work that's happening
Moderate
there.
sidewalk improvements only, no regrading, no changes to the
No
overpass.
refurbishment or yeah, okay.
Is there any landscaping now? I can't think of any.
A lot of juniper, it's really just kind of.
Where is it in relation to that parking area right there, that the drawing you have?
With all what that's on the north side, with all landscaping.
The DOT doesn't have any landscaped
Oh,
areas,
so
but
there's
the
nothing
new area
on
will.
this side at all, nothing green?
I'm sure CVS might see something.
We'll certainly work that edge with them to.
Yeah, see, their backyard, they're thrown over the bank, is the front yard of the train station, so it can't become like a sloppy backyard.
Oh, they have grass there, so,
Really?
yeah.
We'll work with them to do something.
Make it look like a front yard.
So the CVS developer has agreed to continue our downtown beautification plan, using the same type of brick, the same type of lighting, the same type of plants, everything that's there.
We talked about benches too.
Benches, exactly, so that everything matches. You know, is it too late in the process, you know, as long as apples are apples with cost to, because you said you might be doing some improvements on the sidewalk on the north side. They're going to be doing improvements all the way to the bridge, right there. So it kind of makes sense that you would want everything to match and tie everything to be one rather than getting to the other side of the bridge and having Stamp Creek.
Yeah, so David mentioned in his presentation that, like landscaping, we can meet with the town and go over what you have in the area and colors and...
Yeah, we have an actual beautification plan, which we could...
Because what we're also going to be doing is the steel on the existing side, the railings, everything, we're going to be repainting. Right, we have a contract out there, we want everything to match and look new, so that's all going to be, you know, one. Yes.
I'm sorry to beat the same dog twice, but I just want to go back to parking again and ask specifically, how many spots are planned?
So we have an existing 120 parking spaces, and we're adding an additional 21.
And the ridership projections, we'll say, I don't know how far down the road you go with that, 5 years, 10 years?
Probably.
What's the ridership projection?
We have the 2030 ridership that we have been using, and they're doing a new 2040 ridership too, you know, but we have been using the 2030.
Could you just explain that, please?
Well, they're currently working on the 2040. For the 2030, that's what we have been used for all of the stations in the Shoreline East. We're also adding the Hartford line, you know, in Connecticut. But based on the 2030, I don't have the specific numbers, you know, but I could actually get the report, and everything meets, you know, what you see in the plans, everything meets, you know, the ridership numbers for 2030.
Thank you.
Yeah, the 2030 shows that the 141 spots needed. Yes.
So they're indicating the downtown revitalization plan, which should be accessible to you through the town hall, which shows the landscaping, lighting, et cetera, that the town was looking to move forward with.
Okay. I believe I was going to get that from someone, sent me from, I don't know if I spoke to someone from CME.
Oh, John Guskowski.
Yeah, he was going to, I haven't received it yet, but he was going to forward me that.
I don't know if they have it in a PDF format. I know they have printed copies in probably the land use office.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the scheduling of the trains. I thought I heard there'd be no new train stops in Clinton. So I thought the point of a two-sided station was so you had additional stops. So in the morning, if you wanted to go east when everybody else is going west, you could get on and go to New London rather than go to New Haven. And the reverse at night, everybody's coming back from New Haven, and somebody may want to go to New Haven. And you can't do it unless you're stopping on both sides and going in opposite directions. Maybe not the full schedule, of course, but there'd be some additional stops going against the commuting flow. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. You know, I don't want to talk for our operations unit, which are the ones who are actually there, I'm going to say almost on a daily basis, to count the number of commuters, to count, you know, the future ridership. But I'll definitely talk with them. I'll definitely bring, you know, I'll get the numbers and see what are the plans. But as far as I know, as far as they told me, is that right now we're keeping all of the existing trains.
Okay, but this could happen in the future then?
That is correct,
Yeah, okay,
yes.
all right.
Yes.
What month in 2019 were you going to be done? December?
Yeah.
31st.
Yeah.
And your RFQs are going out when? And
They will be going out, I believe, in December.
this December?
Yeah, yep.
You get the bids back in 8 weeks or 4 weeks, you give them?
4 weeks, and then there's a process. Basically, we would award the jobs in March. I mean, they would give them the notice to proceed in March, we award it in February.
You do the bid evaluation and go back and forth, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And then you sign the contract at the end of March, probably?
Hopefully beginning of the March, and then you'll probably see a shovel in the ground sometime in April. We try to do that on purpose, obviously, to hit the spring, so you get a full season in. So that's usually our goal. We try to hit that schedule with buildings especially.
Does Michael Baker do the estimate for the project, for the cost? Do you have an estimate what you think it's going to cost, or did you and the DOT work together on it?
We work together. We've had, obviously a lot of work with other stations.
Yeah.
So I believe it's budgeted 17 million for this. That's everything. That's not just bidder's cost. That's for inspection and all that.
Yeah, everything.
Yep.
Full 17 million? You should have good history from the other jobs.
Yes, exactly. Just the dual elevators is new, but it's funded, so.
Just a comment, just to echo what I think it was Mr. Sango was saying. One of the issues, who are you guys actually going after? Is it the guy or the girl who works in New York City, works in New Haven? I can tell you, for my family, we don't use the Clinton train station because we can't rely on the Clinton train station. I would have to have my day planned out to the last second, and I would have to adhere to a very strict schedule with very little flexibility. So, for my family, if we were to use this as a tool to not use our car, to go into the city, granted, we're only going to go in maybe 5 or 6 times a year, it still wouldn't be worth it if I didn't have more trains stopping at some point. And I think maybe if you build it, they will come. That's what I'm hoping. And you don't even need to comment, just to hear that I think some of the people in the public would echo what I'm saying, that if you're going to build this beautiful train station, please give us more trains stopping there.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
To that, I would add, I've got a lot of requests for selecting for people to be able to use train service on the weekends.
Yeah,
To go everywhere to the west.
For what it's worth, we've ridden the train for 20 years. It's every half hour. You can't do much better than that. You're down between New Haven and New York.
Not on the weekend.
Well, you didn't say the weekend. You gotta be, if you're looking if a weekday, for those of us who are commuting, it works
That's why I was
perfect.
asking if it was the worker or the family.
I would have said originally it was first people.
So the
going-
parking lot's empty on the weekends.
Right. I'm sure your area will bring that to their operations. They always look at ridership and who would take it, right? And that would really determine.
That is correct, because the 3 points that they have stopping, or you have the most commuters from here are New Haven, Stanford, and New York City. Those are the 3 key locations.
Right, and I drive to Stanford.
Right.
That's my point.
How do you know that he's driving rather than taking the train? How can you count in the future when you're not allowing it to go now? You can't count it.
No, if he's not riding the train, if he's just taking right now
The car,
his
you
car.
can't take the train, there's no... Can't count it.
Yeah, build it and give us some weekend service.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
weekend service would be good.
There you go.
You got it? That's not a bad problem.
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
Good problem.
Less cars more around.
You can reduce the cost just a little.
We always try.
Well, we're low bid, so who knows, right?
There are contingencies and incidentals built into the estimate.
We just got to make sure it's, budgeted.
Sure.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for coming.
We'll stick around.
No, I have a friend that works in Haven.